everybody. How's it going?
Going well.
Hey. Very good. Hey.
I love your necklace.
Welcome to my home. I'm Dr. Mark Hatala, and these are my wonderful students. And today we're going to be talking about how television and movies discuss romantic relationships. But why don't we start with introductions? We can start over here.
Well, hi, I'm Ashley.
I'm Annie.
I'm Maddy.
I'm Zach. I'm Will.
Outstanding. But let's get started then. So what do you guys think that they get right, and what do they leave out? Who'd like to go first?
Well, I think there's a general flaw in a lot of filmmaking, just that they're too short, and so everything is compacted into, like, hours, even within the universe. And
So you're seeing an entire relationship in just a few hours.
Right, which is not ever what I've experienced, personally.
Let me give you a counterfactual to that. Have you seen the Before movies? Have you seen those?
I need to. I actually haven't.
Richard Linklater, has anybody besides me seen these? Oh.
I've heard that they are probably the most accurate.
It's the same relationship, 9 years apart, and that's 3 movies now. So when they meet again 9 years later, and then when they're married.
And do you think that's representative of all media?
That's a very good point.
I think that might be a response to the common criticism of a lot of romantic movies and representations of love in the media because they are too short. I read an article a couple weeks ago that was about after Happily Ever After. You know, you often have that exciting moment of meeting a new person and falling in love and then getting together, but then you don't see very many portrayals of like just a good, stable, happy relationship.
Sure.
Like you see a lot of bad relationships where it's like toxic or abusive or just problematic in some way, but like you very rarely just see like a good, healthy relationship. And it's like, are they just inherently uninteresting? Is the casual, like, mundane conflict of a relationship just not something that's worth portraying?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it something that's difficult to portray in some way? And the article that I read argued for the second half that it's just more challenging to convey everyday conflict in an interesting way, like worth putting to a
Who's going to
movie.
pick up the kids? And who's making dinner? Where are we going to go eat?
But like those are my favorite things. Like when I watch like comedy shows and stuff, like the family humor of just like marriage is tough. Like those are my favorite. But then again, I'm like a very domestic type human, so.
Outstanding.
Yeah, building off of Ashley, I think that they just kind of like gloss over a lot of times, like the like neutral in the relationship. Mm-hmm. So just like living your lives together. Mm-hmm. It's just like, oh, we're really in love, or like, oh, we're fighting and something bad really happened. Not just like, okay, like, can you collect your laundry so I can do that like really quick, or like, hey, will you take the dog out for me, or like, do you want to go see a movie or something like that. So I think that's like often overlooked. Like, so people will either think like, oh my gosh, I'm either supposed to be like super happy and like hard eyes over everything, or we're gonna be like fighting and like conflict is gonna be happening. But I think it just overlooks living together, existing. I'm
going to put this to Will. Will, can you think of a film or television series that you think accurately does show?
So I was looking at this when I was looking at the question, and I think it's movies do a much worse job than TV. I think TV has some better, better examples. I think a lot of it really is it is the, crunching it down to like 2 hours. It just doesn't work. And movies tend to like just highlight the highs and lows. It always seems like it's either perfect in every single way or it's, not great and it's just awful. Because even like recently I was watching Blue Valentine and I always heard like how, realistic it was.
I don't think I know Blue Valentine.
Has
anyone else seen this movie?
It's Ryan Gosling and
it's Ryan Gosling. Gotta watch it.
It's Ryan Gosling and it's I can't think of the actress's name. It's Williams. So she was My Week with Maryland. Anyways, it's like everybody kept saying like it's super realistic, and really to me all it was just showing like a bunch of negative stuff though, like, and not necessarily realistic. Like she was knocked up by him very young and this and that. It's like, yeah, maybe that's realistic to some, but it was also just kind of, to me, is like, it's not I actually feel like a movie that I always felt like has it doesn't necessarily show the relationship go on as much as kind of the getting together, but I always felt like Silver Linings Playbook, I actually think, has a very good example of like two people, kind of just because as well, like when you look at them, they like on their own, like you look at them and say together there's no way that can work, because they both have their own psychological problems and whatnot, and all they're going to do is put it on each other. But actually what they do is they're able to use those, and actually somehow it gets them closer together. And,
I think in my opinion, what's going to cause conflict in that movie is the fact that Bradley Cooper's 44,
and she's
J-Law's
like
22.
At least 10 years younger than him,
A Hollywood relationship.
Well, and I think that's the biggest problem. I was thinking about it, is just people in Hollywood that make movies are so divorced from like real life.
Right.
They're like, maybe for like, because it was even like when I was watching Marriage Story that came out recently, like everybody kept saying how realistic it was. And like I'm watching and like these two people should never get married to anybody ever. They should never have kids because they're so selfish and just full of themselves. Like the only people they should marry is themselves because they're so like, just, you know what I mean? And it's like,
Get them.
it was so frustrating. It's just like, I don't know, it felt like to me is like, that just, to me, the fact that critics and everybody is like, this is so relatable, just to me, it speaks that Hollywood, that's realistic to Hollywood. That's not realistic to, say, middle of America, Missouri.
Gotcha.
You don't ever see, like, this small little moments of, like, maybe just watching a movie together, like, for a small date night. You don't see these kind of things,
The Descendants, he's sitting there at the end of the movie watching a movie with his kid.
And that's a very good movie. That's a very good example, I feel like, of a relationship that breaks down.
Yeah.
But, and just kind of the grief with that, too. That's a very good movie.
I also think like everybody has different ideas of like what they want their relationship to be, and there's just like you were talking about, like there's so many different aspects of a relationship and it's so hard to portray those, but like for different people there's different like of those aspects really come to light, and so like maybe some movies show like those aspects more than others, which is, like it might be true, like people fight in a relationship, like they might have a really big argument, but like that's not like what the whole relationship is, like that might not be what like happens very often. And so I think that's one of the main problems with movies. But also I don't think we should discount the fact that a lot of movies have like weird, crazy, like very unique circumstances that the people are in which they portray, like a lot of sci-fi movies, for example, like,
Well, the other thing, okay, so I was a Disney kid growing up, and like, so Disney princess movies, all of them like get married in like 2 days, and it's like, no. Like fear is drinking into your soul, because it's like you're moving too fast, huh? But I used to still want to believe in that, like when I was a kid, I was very rational and I would like, figure out a way to make my schema fit what I was seeing, but I always judged it by, like, the circumstances, so they were really in love. Not because you can fall in love realistically in 2 or 3 days, but because they had gone through what one couple would go through over the course of many years in those 3 days. Like, if you save each other's lives, like, 7 times over the course of 24 hours, I feel like you've created a bond there that, like, is a lot more than what most people can create in 1 day.
Hemingway said you can have an entire relationship in 2 weeks if, like in wartime or something like that.
And I do think that there is some merit to that, and I think that is something that is portrayed a little better in movies sometimes, is a fast relationship, but I feel like the relationship that a lot of people are trying to compare movie relationships to is a normal long-term relationship, which is like, typically, if you're going to do long-term, is more than a couple weeks,
Right. Well, the example I was thinking of that I've never actually watched is the show Roseanne. I don't know if you guys saw that show, and supposedly that was a portrayal, but
That's what I've heard. I've seen very, very little of it.
But none of us watch it. So.
I was gonna say, Modern Family definitely, I feel like, has a good one too. I feel like, honestly, all 3 of the relationships in that movie are pretty good at showing, or not movie, the show, of portraying relationships in different ways, because it's 3 different kinds of relationships, and they all, I feel like, are really fairly accurate, at least compared to like some things.
Sure.
Because I think it should also be remembered too, filmmakers, are going to make what they think people are going to go see, and the average audience member would rather, they want the escapism of I want to see this perfect relationship kind of thing, or I want to see this awful relationship. They don't want to say, I could just go home and have a normal one. I don't necessarily need to pay $10 to go see a normal one, even though I think that'd be far more interesting.
Manny, were you going to say something too, or no?
No, I just agreeing with him on the
Okay.
family. I love that show.
Very good. Any final thoughts on this?
Well,
Oh, please.
Go ahead.
I wonder whether these movies that have roller coaster relationships appeal more to people that are used to having a lot of certainty in their lives. And there could be a generational divide, right? That Gen Zers and millennials that are used to a lot of anxiety and uncertainty would like to see more movies with stable, healthy relationships. And whether filmmaking culture might change over time to reflect that.
That's a very good point. That they don't really portray couples arguing and then compromising.
No, if they argue, it's over. It's a sign.
Very good.
I think that real fast, just something I was thinking of. I have a friend whose parents love watching these kinds of like the disaster relationship kind of movies, and they have actually said they like watching it because it makes them say, well, you know what, our relationship isn't always great, but at least it's not bad. And it's like, it does make sense though, it's like you either want to see the perfect relationship and just get away from, life for a little bit, or you're
Escapism.
like, or it's like, oh my gosh, I have a great relationship compared to this because this is just the worst thing ever. So it's something I never really had thought about before he had said that. I was like, interesting.
And that's why everyone loves Marriage Story.
Yeah, exactly. Honestly, probably.
Well, those are our takes on how television and movies are like real life and relationships, but we'd like to hear what you believe. So please leave that in the comments, and we'd ask you to like this video and subscribe, and have a great day.
Bye.
Okay, very good.